Hi, guys. Thanks for joining me today. As promised, I'm going to dive into what I had promoed as casting directors, agents, etc. We're going to focus primarily on casting directors, or at least the wood chipper that is called the casting industry. Listen, if the shoe fits, don't wear it. Okay. If I have gotten some feedback from casting directors that has not been so pleasant, and so let me school you. You are a generation of casting directors, right? Okay, so you are coming from an industry that is generational professionally, okay? So your grand whatevers within your industry, your casting industry, were the people I'm talking about. Some of them were your parents, so to speak, professionally. There is generational patterns that are handed down. So, like I said, if the shoe fits, don't wear it. Okay. But this is where you come from. This is the industry that you still work within. And I do get messages through YouTube, Facebook, and my email, other platforms that attest to the fact that this is still happening in one form or another. This being by the book, okay? Because this book that is hopefully due, my drop date is July 30th. Anyway, that's irrelevant. So let's just dive in, okay? Because we don't have much time, and I want to address a lot of things. And I thought, well, now how do I frame this in my mind before I share all of this information? I thought, you know what? I'm going to make it a cautionary tale as if I was telling it to my own son, my beautiful 22 in October, who I hope never goes anywhere near the film industry. That's beside the point. Uh, so, cautionary tale, you know, to my son, let's imagine. Okay, first of all, I'm going to break it down for you. It's going to seem like an outline or a list or whatever. Well, first of all, this is not a generalization. There are many exceptions to these rules or whatever you want to call them that I am laying out. Plenty. Now we are focusing on the time with which or within which I was working. Okay, but we are talking again about a generational industry professionally. Okay, so if you don't kind of get that, then email me. I don't know how else to put it. SeanFry66 at gmail.com. So, where you come from, meaning you, the casting industry, here's where you come from. Cautionary tale to my son. Hey, okay, first of all, feedback is brutal. I was asked essentially by a very high profile person who was a family member of my best friend, whose questions often revolved around how do you deal with the rejection? How do you deal with the rejection at such a young age? And it's a very damn good point. How was I dealing with the damn rejection? How were all the other slaughtered princes of the 80s and before and after, and apparently still in one form or another? How were those slaughtered princes? Where did they end up? Where did they go? How did they would deal with their rejection? Each one of them differently. By design, we all react differently, and some of them probably unlived themselves from some of the feedback from y'all. So, and again, if the shoe fits, don't wear it, so I'm not talking to you, but it is a cautionary tale. So we had casting directors, I mean, literally willy nilly all over the place that would employ the same types of behavior. So again, if the shoe fits, don't wear it. It's the last time I'm saying it. So we have people, first of all, in casting. Again, I'm contextualizing this by being an experiential component, okay, of your industry. Um, how many casting directors start as agents? Let's just take that for a moment. How many casting directors started as, I'm sorry, not agents, oh boy, God forbid, that's a hybrid. I mean actors, okay? How many of them do you think, I don't need to do the stats on this one, but how many of them do you, rhetorical actually? None of them, virtually none of them. If they fell into casting and they were an actor, then I have a whole different show for them. But no, by and large, I hate to tell you, these people don't know good acting if it was a 747. So by and large, they don't. Okay, I'm not saying all of them, but I'm saying many of them who had no business making executive decisions about people's talent, literally on the spot. I mean, I know casting, okay? My mother, for 5 minutes between running SACs for the 50s, 60s and producing commercials, was a casting director for 5 minutes. I know it inside and out. I know at least what it was. And again, we've been in, we've covered the generational thing. And let's say that they're lessons to learn from, right? Okay, let's put it that way. You have casting directors at the time, in general, whatever, who literally, I mean, have some sort of God complex. You think doctors are bad? Oy, Gavalt, hock me a Chinik. Are you kidding? I've seen casting directors that think that, they're virtual paramedics, and they're not. Okay, now there were, again, exceptional exceptions to this rule in your industry, in the casting industry. Mike Fenton, Jane Feinberg, Hal Stallmaster, Diane Crittenden. I can go down the list of ones that were saints, but they were the exceptions to the rule, unfortunately. You had, like, whoever casts Revenge of the Nerds, I don't really care who you are if you're still alive, but man, you were a nasty woman. And it's just reflective of many nasty encounters that you come up against that you have no control over, and you cannot. That's the killer. The rejection. Screw the rejection. It's not being able to speak up for yourself in a virtually humiliating scenario. Okay, so example, this Revenge of the Nerds lady. I walk in. I mean, I barely get a hello in. Again, examples, overarching examples of an overarching sort of pattern of this time, and who knows, within the arena, at which time, when time, what time. So I get in, I'm scarcely into my hello, and she's like, "Are you wearing makeup?" I had some concealer on here because I was a teenager. You break out, right? And I used to get it kind of along my jawline, like kind of really bad ones. So, I didn't have. And she's like, "You leave and you take that makeup off and then you come back." Now, guys, that is such a microcosm of a macrocosm. That's not an isolated incident. Whoever the casting director at Viacom was, hello lady, mid 80s, doing most of the casting at Viacom. Man, you were a nasty woman too. For what did I do? They don't look you in the eye. They take phone calls during your reading, or they don't engage you, and then their excuse is, "Well, I can tell good acting by listening to it." Oh, really? Well, I studied with Lee Strasberg 1-to-1. I can't quite tell good acting by just listening to the whole thing and then taking a phone call. You know what I did on that interview towards the end, before you drove me out of the industry? Not you, but several others in your arena, let's say. I stood up and took my picture and my resume back from you, and I walked out of the office. I wasn't fuming. I just took it politely out of your hand and walked out. Do you remember? Well, I hope you died with that thought. No, I'm just kidding. I don't hope anyone dies with anything. I can go through, another lady, kept taking phone calls and not looking at me again, not engaging, she was smoking a cigarette. Can you imagine? Again, I said to her, this is towards the end when I couldn't virtually take it anymore. I said, "Would you just look at me while I'm reading?" And she goes, "I am." I said, "No, you're not." And I left. So, okay, so we know why Sean stopped acting. And that's not the only reason why, okay? There were lame ass actors out there that were getting lots of work. I'm not laying it on all that either. There's nepotism. Nepotism is a virus in Hollywood, by the way. Just as an aside, I would say, unfortunately, so many of the actors that you see on television and elsewhere, guys, they were somebody's daughter, son. They were somebody's nephew. They were somebody's. I don't even want to go into what the somebodies of somebody they were, but whatever. So there's garden variety nepotism of every variety all over the place. There was the good and the bad. Like I said in the promo, the good, the bad, and the monstrous. with the exceptions that I mentioned, and not just those people, but others like them that were rising head and shoulders above, of this. Enough is enough already. I mean, how do you handle the feedback? Let me tell you how you handle the feedback. Bingo. Let's go there, okay? Ignore it. Ignore it. Your casting director, statistically, virtually knows nothing about acting. I really, guys, I'm so sorry. And I know that you casting directors are going to hate me even more after this. But let's say certain of y'all, at one point or another, really operate as a function of putting A to C. And then somehow in there you decide, and I know it's hard. Out of 60 million people, okay, cattle call, that's hard. But guess what? Some of those auditions narrow down to like 3 people, 6 people, 7 people, 4 people. I think everybody should be bringing, quite frankly, I think directors should be doing cattle calls all the time, because it's going through a sifter that is questionable, okay? The complexes that they have, the attention and power that they demand. I mean, I've gone on. You don't know how to please them half the time. Half the time, once I wore a gardenia in my pocket, so I would at least smell nice. There was something noticeable, remarkable, and then the feedback can be brutal. Again, from this milieu of casting folks that have no business, recognizing talent. Okay, well, again, like I said, there were plenty of you that were experts in your field that loved me. Diane, I mean, my God, The Awakening Land, a miniseries, an act of violence she cast me in. So, and it was no form of nepotism. She just knew that I was a decent actor and that I didn't, deserve to have her, midlife crisis dumped on me. I was 14, give me a break. 12. I started at 6, but I'm dealing with these people 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 through 13, which was a very, very busy time for me. Forget E.T. Then everything slowed down. It was like molasses after that. Well, not really, but you guys, so funny. One time, I'll tell you one funny story. So I was at a casting call, or an audition, and so it was another one of those nasty situations. I never told anyone this. Nobody knows this, and not that it matters. And another one of those scenarios. So all the actors are waiting outside the casting office, and I leave the casting office, and guess what? Sean decides I'm going to leave through the emergency exit. And it set off the entire building's alarms. They couldn't continue. You have to wait till my husband would know. You have to have a crew of people, flip some switches or something. But I intentionally went out of that freaking emergency exit, bringing everything to a halt. The actors are, they don't know whether to narc on me or laugh at me. And I walked out of that building with my head held high. Why? I don't know. It's a wood chipper, guys, for a lot of folks. And I don't think it's ever going to shake that element, that brutal element, the feedback that you get. And I don't mean to keep bringing it up, but for good example was when Tom Hanks was on Bosom Buddies. I did the table read with him. I did a blocking. Everything seemed fine. You never know. The feedback that I got through my agent was that he was probably a producer. I don't know. I don't care. But it was that I was too effeminate. Now, they may have said precocious and fey or whatever words they use at the time. Precocious was very popular, meaning, effeminate, swishy, odd, off, precocious. So that's an example. What did I do between being hired by you, going through a table read and a blocking, and then suddenly I'm too effeminate? And then you have casting directors who know less than you do, who put me there. Oh my God, you guys. Anyway, this is 3 shows. I'll get to agenting next week, next go around that we have about this. Because yes, kids, I do have thousands of things in my brain. I hate to tell you, the reason you're seeing a show every night is because there is a show every night. I started at 6. I was forced out of the industry, in my opinion, in varying ways and modes and whatever, to the point where I got married to try and save and stay in the industry. So that's a long time. That is a hell of a lot of casting directors, okay? And then don't get me started on agents for now. Anyway, I just wanted to leave you with a breakdown kind of my shows. Again, we talked about there's like 500 of them now, or God knows how many. They can't all be of interest to you. That's why I do teaser clips. My teaser clips are 40, 50 seconds. If the show is a 15-minute show, or if it's a 2 hour show or 29-minute show, look at the teaser, see if it interests you. Subject line, it can say actor, it can say whatever, plumber, and then you know, go to that teaser, see if it interests you. If not, move along, or shut me off for a month or a day or an hour. But again, I would think as a viewer, it would be easier for me to go to a channel that interested me and not stare at a bunch of, you know, like shows that are just linear, going down like a binary code. So again, like I said, most of them have teasers, and the subject line, I try to give as much information in there so that you know what you're watching. And again, feel free. Everything that's squeezed in between there is either a preview of a show, a teaser, like I said, and one of my, I don't know, rants, or my Robin Hood Diaries, which are my own shows. I have two major cool interviews, okay? I'm going to actually promo the upcoming one right now. That's amazing. That's tomorrow. I have one on Monday. Amazing. Oh, and then I have, you know, one or two maybe later in that week. So I don't know. There's no like scheduling, there's no TV guide for me. So I just throw that out there. Okay. I'm done. I love you guys for putting up with me, and there is more to come, for better or worse. Take care. Love you. Bye.